Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to have another look at ThorChain. Now, last time I made a video on ThorChain, I went quite into detail on a lot of possible scenarios that could happen leading up to this halving compared to the last one. And if you didn't watch that video or you don't remember it, you're probably wondering what is going on. There's a lot of arrows and stuff going everywhere. We will go back into that. And the reason we will go back into it, and I'm not pulling up new bits of information, I will of course be providing additional pieces of information, but we're not looking at a completely different aspect of Rune, because so far most of it has come true, and almost like to a T, which I am quite proud of for spotting, bit of an ego boost. So we will get into this very soon, and then of course we are going to look at ThorChain on its Bitcoin pair, and take a look at what that shows us as well. So getting straight into all this mess of color, we can see we have, first of all, this blue trend up that ThorChain experienced during the Bullrun year and for a year afterwards. And then towards the end of the Bullrun year, like a lot of altcoins, ThorChain started to peel off and has slowly been in a downward trend up until recently. And again, this is where all the squiggly lines come in. These orange show the downward move that ThorChain followed. And if we zoom in, we can see we have 5 arrows pointing in all different directions. And what they basically, well, first of all, this one here, this is how far Rune is supposed to go up. And when I drew this line, this top wasn't in yet for Rune. In fact, I made my video the 13th of November, I think. So somewhere around here was when I made my video. And I basically said, we'll most likely come to a top here and find a resistance. And that was because if we go back, we can see that we had exactly double that move last cycle. And I know you're wondering, why would I cut that in half for no reason? And that was basically just because there was no way we were going to get a 1400% move in this short of a time frame from here. In my opinion anyway, that's what I assumed. It would just be too crazy. And if we did, like, the rest of the crypto space would have to come with it, and it would cause too much of a rally. Like, it would be too impressive for a non-bull run year. So I said it'll probably be around 50%. As we're coming towards a similar time frame, we can see this one went on for about 25 weeks from when it started to rally to when we put in a low. And here I drew our 25 weeks from the start of the rally, and currently we have a couple of weeks left, but it looks like we could put in a low. And if you take a look at this red arrow as well, you'll see that it's a 34% move down. If we zoom into this guy over here, we'll see that it's a 68% move down. And that's what Rune did from its high, when it put in its high, and how far it went within a total range, how far it fell over the space of the 25 weeks once it had put in its top. So if we take a look at this, we can see that so far that has played out, and it has moved to a low of minus 34%. However, we didn't just say that was going to happen. What we did say is one of two things could happen, because it depends how you want to look at the last Bitcoin halving. If you want to look at it at percentage moves from how far it fell from the top, we follow this red line. But if we want to look at it as a percentage move of how far it grew from when this initial pump took place and where it retraced to, we can see obviously last cycle these are the same, because it's the same piece of data, just represented in a slightly different way. However, for this cycle, of course, these new percentages aren't going to add up the same. So we can see if Rune wants to play it by, it rallies up, and then how far of the rally up does it retrace to, like we see here. So we see Rune rallies up and then it comes back down to this level. So it makes a total of a 383% of a move from its first initial pump to its low after that pump, or its lowest point after that pump. Does it do the same thing here, where it moves 192% above from where it first started its pump and retraced back to that, and the total from the low to the low after the pump come to here? Or is it a move down from the top? And me now, having had more time to let the charts play out, and again, this is the weekly, sorry, so if you're looking at the other video, it's probably the daily, so it will look different. But having more time now to have watched ThorChain play out, and of course see that this one has played out pretty well, and this one we're still a while away from, I would now naturally lean towards this, just because of the time constraints that we put ourselves under if we're going to play out the same way as last time. We can see that, zooming in last time again, this low came in 8 weeks before the halving, and that's when we put in the low. And then after that we continued up, we trended upward on Rune. If we go back to where we are now, I'll adjust this so we can see the time frame as well, we can see that we are more than 8 weeks away from the halving. We're 15 weeks away. However, our 25-week period is sort of up. Our half a year is done in terms of where we started rallying from to where we should come to our low if we're going to follow the same pattern as last time. You can see last time was 25 weeks as well. We kept the duration the same because, again, this is a seasonality thing. Just because percentages are moving, ThorChain is still fitting into the 4-year cycle. And so far that's played out more or less spot on in terms of how high it went, how far it fell afterwards, and for how long it occurred. But again, I said we could get this low, we might put in this low 8 weeks before the halving, we might put it in before the 25 weeks, we might put it in a couple of weeks afterwards. You know, like, it was totally up for interpretation on these things. Like, they never play out the same, and surprisingly ThorChain has played out eerily similar to last time. I mean, you could argue that we haven't had this first retracement here. You could say that's this first retracement is that one and that we're due for a bigger one. That could very well be possible. Again, we've got lots of time until the halving. And here it was sort of, again, you know, a couple of weeks before the halving when we put in this second low. We could have a very flash up, flash down. That could be caused by the spot ETF. Again, there's a lot of volatility in the market that Bitcoin ETF is causing. In terms of where I think ThorChain will be headed now in the near and long term, I would expect us to stay below this level before we get over the halving date. And then after that, it's sort of free game. Like last time, we've seen ThorChain went up crazy after the halving. And if we pull up Bitcoin, we can see it's still underperforming BTC. This is now switched to the normal charts, the non-logarithmic, so excuse me if it looks a bit messy. But we can see that it is still underperforming BTC from the all-time high of August. So you would still have been better holding Bitcoin all the way down. And BTC has even moved up more impressively over this year than ThorChain has. Even though ThorChain had its crazy spike during this period, BTC also had a very strong move up and kind of, well, it definitely did, kept its lead above ThorChain. And even when ThorChain started this retracement, Bitcoin still rallied up. So even when, like I said, when ThorChain first made this move, I was saying there will be altcoins that perform well, and there will be altcoins that perform extremely well in short periods of time. But over the space of the bear run years and the non-bull run years, Bitcoin is definitely your safest bet. And again, it has continued to prove itself that Bitcoin, aside from all these great altcoins that are quick and they are scalable and they have extreme speed and they can have thousands of transactions, it just doesn't beat the old reliable, which is Bitcoin. Up until, of course, you get to sort of these speculative seasons, and then Bitcoin becomes, it lags compared to the altcoin space. Anyway, moving back to a nicer looking chart that lines up with our arrows again. It is kind of up to you, but again, looking at what happens after the halving, ThorChain does just trend up, and we can see it's a very nice trend up, and we can see also that for a few, like basically a year, 43 weeks, 42 weeks before the halving, ThorChain is already trending up. And if we go to where we are now, how long we've been moving like this, it's been 44 weeks bang on. So again, it's like, it's kind of extremely eerily similar. Even with this just initial move up, it's so similar to this move up. ThorChain is basically playing out exactly. And I wouldn't use exactly loosely either. It's like to a T playing out how it did last halving. And if we take a look at where it went after the halving, how much of a move it made, it went up 20,000%. Now again, to put the brakes on it a little bit, to stop everyone getting hyped and just buying ThorChain now and expecting a 20,000% of a move, I don't expect it to go 20,000% up again. I think it will do well, but first of all, this was the summer where DeFi popped off, so everything was surrounding DeFi, so it was kind of ThorChain's environment. The narratives that we're following this year and this season aren't the same, they've changed. DeFi isn't as hot as it was, and also it's just the market cap of the cryptocurrency is big, so we're less likely to see these drastic moves. Again, the first time an altcoin makes it, you know, big onto the crypto stage is the last time it puts in these huge, crazy percentage moves. I mean, it could very well still do crazy percentage moves. Like, you could even look at it at the 50% rule again, where you cut everything in half, basically, percentage-wise. And you could say that, oh, we're expected a 10,000% move. Like, that's going to put you at a crazy price. Like, that's expecting ThorChain to go above $200, which I personally don't think will happen. You know, coins like Uniswap that are arguably more established and got more attention and got more hype didn't do moves this impressive. So again, ThorChain's lower, more of a chance to move in a more volatile way. When markets are good, there's a higher chance that ThorChain might outperform higher cap cryptos in terms of percentage move. I just wouldn't get your hopes up for another crazy move like this. I think, again, it's going to follow narrative. And also, we're probably not going to have as crazy as a bull run as we did in 2021. I think that was, you know, stars aligning for the perfect bull run. I don't think we're going to get that again this year. or next year, excuse me. But that's me totally speculating now, and I'm kind of getting into a grey zone of where I'm just saying what I think will happen in the far future with very little evidence, and that's literally just one bull run. So to steer myself away from that, we'll take a look at ThorChain on its prime pair. As we can see, it's also very bullish. Very strong moves to the upside we can see in the year leading up to the bull run year, and of course the halving year. I mean, it speaks for itself really. We had these crazy moves, and again, we are seeing similar moves to the upside. And even though these look smaller, again, this is probably a similar move percentage-wise. Could even be bigger. Let's take a look, 100% of a move here. Oh no, never mind, 700% of a move here. Crazy. So ThorChain is just going... It did go crazy during 2020 and 2021, and we can see after this sort of big correction that ThorChain's been going through, it has now started to pick up, and we're very close to all-time high levels on the Bitcoin ThorChain pair. Like, if we take a look at how much of a move ThorChain needs to go up, it's still quite big, sort of 180% of a move, but to ThorChain, that's nothing. Like, it literally did 100% moves in a week, in literally a week, which is absurd, totally absurd. So, very possible for these things to do. I think our next move up will be in line here. If we do bounce off this support trend that we've, only just established, it's still quite new. If we do bounce here and have a very strong rally again, like we've seen before, I think it'll be, the breaks will be hit here, and we might sort of trail off again like we see onto the white line and then break above it next go. And again, I think that would be our next resistance there. I'll actually draw a quick line to show where I think that will be. So we'll probably bounce up, hit this guy, come down, bounce up, potentially hit this guy and come down. That's very speculative though, and that might not happen, but those would be our next key resistances if we were to follow how ThorChain has performed previously. Again, taking a look at the last halving, ThorChain slowed down a bit as we came to it, and we can see if we take how many weeks it slowed down for, it was about 24 weeks. Again, very similar to what we saw on the US dollar pair, 25 weeks. And if we take a look at how many weeks sort of these pumps started at, it was about 24 weeks ago. So we had this crazy move up, and then 24 weeks of oscillation. We could see that over these next few weeks, ThorChain just oscillates. And we can actually kind of expect to move these goalposts a little bit with where we've lined up this trend line. Again, we should probably expect a less steep move, because this is quite crazy at the moment, but these are the only points that we have that we've continuously bounced off. But here you can see there was probably a point where we could draw a line here, and then draw a line here, and then draw a line here. And of course, they just didn't happen until we rallied up and then came back here, and we used this as our support line. So I think we'll have a similar case where as time goes on, we'll slowly be pulling this trend line down and down and down and down. So I think what we'll see as time goes on is this line will slowly come down like this as we put new lows, not lows, but as we just spend longer periods of time doing nothing with ThorChain, and we slowly push this down and down and down until eventually we put in a final bounce like we did here. But until then, I'm going to keep this line here, but let the record state that I did call for this line to move down, because I'm pretty sure it will. I'm pretty sure it's very impossible to hold this move up. But I do think ThorChain will actually continue to trend up on its Bitcoin pair, because that's what we saw last time. And again, during this period, there was a lot of hype around DeFi, so we might not see that again. But if you look at cryptos like Uniswap, if you look at cryptos like other lending protocols and DeFis like 1inch, they are not making money moves like this. They're not keeping up with ThorChain. ThorChain is kind of in a league of its own at the moment, and it's only recently that it's sort of gotten into a good space again. Like, I remember it was somewhere around 200 market cap wise a few months back, and that's honestly when I was I was thinking to myself, I might just pick some up just in case. It's at a low price now that I'm happy with, and thank God I did, because I'm very happy with where it's gone. And I hope that you guys also pick some up. I mean, hopefully you didn't pick any up sort of after this 5th of November sort of time frame, but even if you did, you're still probably not very deep in the red if you did buy, unless you bought at the top, but hopefully you didn't. I'm sure you'll be able to make your money back though if you do hold. So again, for one of the first times in a while, I am actually quite bullish on a cryptocurrency, and it's not even in the bull run year, which is more surprising, even to myself. It's just that kind of everything we have to go off points to ThorChain being bullish, in my opinion. And that might even go against the grain a little bit of what the rest of the crypto space might do. But ThorChain was one of the first to start moving. Like, it was here, early August time. I mean, even early August time. That's when ThorChain started making its strong moves. and nobody else was doing that. Solana hadn't started popping off yet. Avalanche hadn't been popping off. XRP had cooled down from the SEC thing. Rune just came out of nowhere and started pumping. And I remember making videos at the time saying $2 will be our strong resistance, and we did find a resistance there, but we blew right above it, and it's been continuing to go up. And I just didn't think that it would play out this similar way, because again, this was the DeFi summer, this was the DeFi narrative. All the lending protocols going up on Bitcoin and US dollar pair, even in the halving year, when historically Bitcoin would take a bit more on the Bitcoin pair before eventually relinquishing it in the Bullrun year of 2021. ThorChain just kept going up, and it's doing that again today. So to temper expectations, I do expect that we will probably trade sideways towards the halving. We might slowly trend up. You might even want to draw a line like this into the halving, and we might see that we also put in a double top at some point. We might bounce around here and then put in another double top and then come back down like we saw here. We had a double top. We might not. We might just go sideways, and then once we're over the halving, we might explode up. We might crash after the halving. Anything can still happen, but for me, I do think we will probably see, just because it's played out so similarly already, probably a double top. I can imagine there will be some renewed interest. The bulls will try to take it away again. We will see the double top on the Bitcoin pair. So I'm going to clone this, and I'm going to see if I can line it up. We could see something like that, and we could also see a double top. Again, that's like very... I wouldn't expect that to play out exactly as is. But it is interesting that we might already be lining up for another very similar move. It is very possible, and the timeframes are very similar. So just keep it in mind, it could happen, it might not. Who knows? I don't. Nobody does. But hopefully this has sort of maybe helped you understand where ThorChain might go. And just know that it took me by surprise. Even when I knew this had happened previously, I didn't think it would happen again, but it seems to have happened again. Which is great news if you're a ThorChain holder, and hopefully you are, or you have been during this move, because you've made nice amounts of money. Anyway guys, I think that about wraps up the video. If you liked it, please comment down below what you thought. Leave a like if you liked it, leave a dislike if you didn't. Totally up to you. If you want to have a chat or share your thoughts, comment them down below. I do always get back to you guys, even if I am a bit slow. Again, life's been a bit hectic, but I will do my best to get back to you. Thanks very much guys, take care and peace.